can we do this better? What can we learn? How can we integrate? How can we share the stories? You might have heard of a guy called Elon Musk. He's got this great rocket idea. 30 minutes to Asia, 60 minutes to anywhere in the world. It's absolutely awesome. Full respect. Simultaneously, ridiculous. In my world, audio-visual special effects, 30 to 60 minutes latency, lag time, we called it. That's ridiculous. We've got to do better. We've got to think outside our meat suitcases. Great point in the talk earlier with where's the people? And I heard even coming in the doors there, if we can just kind of get past the people, and I've kind of heard it before, if we just get rid of the dude in the car. And I challenge the IoT industry to think human first. We keep hearing from the titans of technology, we're mobile first and we're AI first and so on. I challenge you all to think human first. So this is what we've done at Humense. Don't reach for your dictionaries, I made it up. It's immensely human. It's to design our business and design thinking around it, around, I guess, the solo nature of our experience here on Earth, but also the greater collective way we impact. What we've done here is we've filmed people volumetrically. We all know flat videos, but when we combine a range of different cameras and merge it together to make something like a 3D model, we can walk around in the scene and with people and not just see them, we can be with them. And in a way that's not just photoreal or not just broadcast or cinema worthy, but in a way that's neuropsychologically worthy. Because after all, as we know from our neurosciences, eventually everything that happens to us, everything we experience happens in the brain, essentially. And so, unfortunately, I apologize ahead of time because explaining virtual and augmented reality on a 2D screen is a bit like teaching you how to fly by driving a car. So if we can just think past the dimensions, we'll get there. And of course, what we're trying to attempt to do is make virtual reality and augmented reality more human, because at the moment, if you imagine TV, movies, sport, and there are no real humans, it's just cartoon characters and avatars. That's what AR and VR is at the moment. And that's one reason our company hypothesizes it hasn't really fully broken into the mainstream. It's made a few steps, but not fully. And the blueprint's been written for us. And there's a good reason here these people are sitting in an intergalactic setting. And it's those 4 magic words that we're all trying to achieve whenever we pick up the phone or write a letter or SMS. We're trying to reach together with trust, loyalty, persuasion, and bonding. Now, George Lucas wasn't the first person to blueprint this kind of idea. In the 1950s, Leslie Nielsen of Naked Gun fame, he was in a movie called Forbidden Planet. And Forbidden Planet showed this holographic version of Leslie Nielsen. But before that, in 1958, I encourage you all to look it up, Magical Highway by Walt Disney. Hyperloop, hovercrafts, color-coded laneways, and all sorts of magical things. And unfortunately, even though he was in LA, they didn't adopt that until now. Elon's doing his bit. I apologize, that's just jumped around a little bit, but the main point of this slide, and it's funny as we walk around, some of the greatest data we've immersed ourselves in the last 100 years is communication as we talk to each other, write to each other. And so little of us kind of understand that. Because so little of us really appreciate that most of what we do and convey and receive is body language. And that's why SMSs get misunderstood or writing gets misunderstood. So this layer of communication is missed. And I propose the augmented and virtual reality world will help us bridge this. And it's suspected over the next 3 years will grow from a several billion industry to 120 billion. So there's big money and a lot of the large players are behind it. And already we've had superstars creating more wealth than any movie release last year, for example, with Pokemon Go, and reinventing the way data can be leveraged per longitude, latitude, per shop front. And basically opening up the way we can do business. This is more or less a Pokemon version by Alibaba via its Alipay app, which is now serving about 70% of payments in China. But of course, credit goes to Evan from Snapchat, who I feel hasn't been given enough credit in helping augmented reality cross into the mainstream. The irony is 99% of people using this don't know it's called augmented reality. But it goes from magic show to utility. And if Bunnings sell another tape measure tomorrow, that should be a surprise. But now our AR kits from Apple and the AR Core from Android enabling us more or less close to millimeter accuracy. Think about what then we can do if we understand that just from our smartphones, near to 2 billion smartphones around the world. Not only can we place furniture in situ in the right way and minimize risk, mitigate all the troubles of decision making, we can do so much else out in the real world as we involve ourselves in construction and relating to each other. But all these kind of visuals as seen through a phone is one world. We're in this world where we're reaching for our phones 150 times a day and we're swiping, touching, tapping our phones. Do you know how much? The average is about 2,500 times a day. So, a fairy tale maker, who is also the author of The Wizard of Oz, came up with a fairy tale about us wearing electronic glasses. And as we look at people, we see a little letter symbolized on a forest, and it would have something like W for wise, F for fool, K for kind, C for cruel. This was a world imagined by L. Frank Baum in 1901. And as my friend Mark Pesce, who's unfortunately not in the room with us today, can attest, and every one of you here wearing glasses make all the difference, hey? But right now you're feeling really ripped off because you've only got one app on your eyewear. And in a couple of years, maybe less, you'll be jumping up and down because hundreds of apps will be available to you. And the hardware is now already here to unlock applications, which can unlock billions of dollars of value and greater ability to get up and walk around and do your job and live a healthier lifestyle. Speaking of which, I'm glad you got up and did a bit of a wiggle just before my talk, because otherwise I'd be speaking to, I think Kim Jong-un called it dotards or dull brains. Thank goodness you got a little bit of movement going on there. And if we think about this, if you had the choice to hire 1,000 people who have been sitting quietly for 20 minutes or hire 1,000 people who are using augmented reality or virtual reality head-up displays, who have been walking around, interacting with their data, embodied learning, who would you hire? So this is a great world we live in. The sparkles off the Opera House sails, the glitter on the water, we've got it good here. Great quality of life. Great talents, business connecting, reasonable, non-corrupt governments, and so on. However, headlines. $10 billion, the cost of congestion. I call it latency and lag. But it's not only in Australia, of course, this is a worldwide problem. But it is interesting, in just last week, there was a big event in Adelaide called Hybrid World, and so shout out to Flavia from Adelaide, pitching themselves ahead of Sydney with reduced commute times or reduced lag. How does this affect how much time you can spend with your family, do your job more effectively, less fatigued when you arrive or when you get home? But it's not only cars that are a problem. It's, of course, sometimes we have delays in other modes of transport when we're obsessed about transporting our meat suitcases. We even spend a US $1 trillion a year on it. And it's all because of trust, loyalty, persuasion, bonding. There's psychological reasons for that. Back in 2006, the Federal Treasury actually did a study on what are the economic disadvantages of being so far away from economic capitals. So up here, of course, New York, suited perfectly, the epicenter of the financial. Down here, we've got New South Wales, and to the back, Tasmania. So this capitalist society decides more or less where we need to live. And so in America, you see property 10 times the value compared to the middle of America, and similarly Sydney compared to regional rural areas. And what if we could use the IoT and use the visualization interface of AR, VR and holographic telepresence to help distribute our population. So just recently, we have 66% in a significant poll in Sydney say Sydney is full. They're saying that already, 2017, and we're expected to grow by another few million. Now, I'm just about 4 weeks back from Bangalore, where it's grown from about 3.5 million to 10 million. There was 800 lakes about a decade ago, so now about 100 lakes. Lakes are being reclaimed to build buildings to cope for the people, to cope for the technology companies moving in. Rubbish is being dumped in the lakes, all sorts of weeds are growing, and lakes are catching on fire. Where do you draw the line? What is this obsession with megacities? Can we not distribute? There's also, on the last night I was there, I actually got caught in a flood because where does the water go? Now all those lakes have been filled in. Why is it in 2017 that we've got a book published, Alone Together? There's more of us. We should have great company. We're alone together with all these devices, and how we have failed to really understand the data of communication, never mind other types of data. And in one other data point, after we leave home, we only get to spend about 7% of our total face-to-face time with our family on average. Consider that the health implications of that as well, and how that is due to having to move to another city or a village to do your work and not have that psychological connection. And what do you know? We even have antidepressants traced in our harbour. Yes. That beautiful harbour, Sydney. So we've seriously got to think about this. And we're being challenged by Melbourne, always. There's this rivalry, great rivalry. Melbourne is the most livable city in the world, according to The Economist, and perhaps UN, and perhaps Lonely Planet. But dare I say, that measure is biased with where you want to place executives, or Lonely Planet actually starting from near Melbourne. And so it's been questioned, and in fact by RMIT, who said actually the definition of the most livable city is around 1 million population. Adelaide. So this relates to a few psychological phenomena. A guy called Dr. Robin Dunbar measured the behaviour of primates and found there is a certain number of sustainable friendships, and we found it related closely to humans. It's about 150, and in the different layers down to 5, it gets more and more intimate. Once upon a time, before horse and cart, we could walk 20 minutes and see all our Dunbar's number of friends. But now we've got planes and internet and so on. They're everywhere. It's harder. We can't take our meat suitcases everywhere because the law of proxemics, proximity communication, determines how well we relay and interact with emotional transfers. And as we scaled communication and storytelling, each bit we've cut off the neurotransmitter exchange. What matters? The whites in the eye connection. The whites in the eye elicit neurotransmitters, which in turn elicits oxytocin. Much of our internet today is dopamine. Dopamine, like, tweet, re-like, love, whatever. And it's this dopamine poking machine. It's like the middle lane of a highway is really well paved. And of course endorphins, as we move around with the mobiles now, that's fairly well paved and monetized as well, but the dopamine lane is super monetized. There's a third lane, maybe it's the slow lane. It's oxytocin. No one's built it. It fairly much doesn't exist. I mean, cat videos, but it sort of doesn't exist. We don't have that whites in the eye connection. It's not possible from like this 2D interface. And I'll give you a classic example from a little video conference I did with some Kiwi friends. You sit up proper at the start of a video conference. It's all formal. And then 5-10 minutes away, the brain's just subconsciously going like, yeah, this is not real. This is just a video avatars. You're not really properly connecting to the whites in the eye. Before you know it, you find them picking their nose, putting hands where they shouldn't be, and probably communicating, not as they would in a face-to-face meeting. And that's because as human beings, we're social animals. The whites in the eyes are important, designed purposely different from the crocodile. And there's a reason Princess Leia didn't send a text. She didn't write a personal letter. she sent her volumetric holographic form. And this has been proven even by the leader of the world's greatest economy in India. And also argued in UK Parliament by Lord Mitchell, who argued against a £40 billion railway project because by 2030, most business meetings will happen holographically. I would argue it was sooner. And the thing about virtual reality and augmented reality, it's like you're dreaming awake. It's a real experience. The brain accepts it. How do we do it? This is our old studio. Behind the curtains, actually it's made out of bamboo. So we truly bootstrapped. But lucky for us, in talking with people like Alibaba, we found some nice investment. And now in our new studios in St Leonard's, we've managed to take the number of cameras down from about 80 odd down to 12 and even 2. And now we can produce the neuropsychologically true holographic telepresence. And here is my friend sitting on my laptop, just as you can sit on any street corner, speak in any language, the tourist, or in a building, give evacuation procedures right at the moment in the right place at the right time. And in a way, our tidal wave of change of the way the world is planned and the way society connects is being backed up by a tidal wave of billions of dollars from these important companies. And also these visionaries like Steve Wozniak. So I hope that you can enjoy a very significant change over these next 12 to 24 months as we introduce volumetric video and holographic telepresence to the world. Thanks.